Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a 12-game NFL slate and a 2-game NBA slate for you. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? Really helps the channel out today. So let's go ahead and look at our NFL slate first. So we have a lot of games on the slate through the 4:30 time slot, so keep that in mind. Lots of weather on this slate, potentially, at least in the afternoon games, so keep that in mind as well. But as we look at this slate, I do think we have a lot of guys that we like here at each position. So should be a pretty high scoring slate. At quarterback, I am definitely paying down some as I do like the quarterbacks that are mid priced, like Geno Smith here with the Seattle Seahawks. He looks like he's in a solid spot. He did have a rough game against Buffalo, but I look for him to bounce back here as he's got that 15 to 25 fantasy point potential today, and he's priced pretty fairly today on this one, very cheap. Daniel Jones is actually pretty interesting for me here as well for the Giants against Washington. Now, he has had some struggles at times, but this is kind of an upside game for him as he does have some utility here, as his price is just too cheap. But I think he's definitely a very contrarian play and high risk. But I do think he has some utility. And then if you want to get super cheap here, which you can definitely do here with Minshaw for Las Vegas against Cincinnati. Cincinnati has struggled against the pass this season, and I look for Minshaw to have some upside here with him getting a more opportunity in this next couple games with the other injuries here. So I think he's in a good spot to have a lot of opportunity. He should be able to get a couple touchdown passes against this offense, similar to last week, and getting 15 to 20 fantasy points is definitely in play there. But the ownership here will go to Geno Smith and Jalen Hurts, along with Dak Prescott and Jameis Winston. I do think Jalen Hurts is interesting against Jacksonville, but he's pretty expensive, so he's definitely more contrarian. I do think Geno Smith is probably the safest option on the slate. Looking at our running backs here, we do like Chase Brown a lot for Cincinnati. Let's see, where'd he go? He looks like a great value play here. He's going to get some more run opportunity today, and he's going to get a couple opportunities in the passing game as well. So he's going to have some potential to get double-digit fantasy points. He's nicely priced at $5,900, and so he looks like a solid position player or solid running back at the position. He could also fit in as a utility option today on this, or the flex option on the slate. Alvin Kamara. For New Orleans is one of my favorite plays, though, at this position. He's been fantastic in certain situations, and he gets a great one today against a very weak run defense in Carolina. Really, Carolina's bad everywhere, and he's got a lot of potential to score a lot of fantasy points in this one, so I think he's definitely a core play. Kyren Williams also looks good for the Rams, and if you go cheap at quarterback, you can try to mix in both Kamara and Williams today, as he has that 20 fantasy point upside in this matchup as well. Though Seattle is a little bit better defensively than some of them, they've really been bad against the rush defense, the rush this season, so he's in a great spot. Bijan Robinson for Atlanta is also very interesting today. He's been running pretty well the last 3 games. I look for that to continue here against one of the worst defenses for rushing in the business this season. And we also like DeAndre Swift as kind of a value play for Chicago against Arizona, as he has some nice upside here and a fantastic matchup as well. So all those guys have a lot of utility here, but the ownership will go to Alvin Kamara, Chase Brown, Devin Akane, Kenneth Walker, Kyren Williams, and Bijan Robinson. So do keep that in mind. Looking at our wide receivers, now we do like Chase Olave here for New Orleans. I think that this is going to be an up-tempo opportunity for New Orleans to have a good game. And Olave definitely has some potential on this one. Even though he struggled at times this season, he's going to get a lot of targets today like he did last week, I think. And that'll give him some potential against a weak defense. I also like Cedric Tillman for Cleveland. Now, he is in a tough matchup, though. So to keep that in mind, but he's been getting more opportunity the last couple weeks, and that definitely gives him some upside here. And he's had some really big games, and he's nice and cheap. Drake London, meanwhile, looks really solid for Atlanta at $6,700. He's going to be one of those guys that I think he was very close to me a core play. The only thing that last week he didn't do too much, but I do think he's in a better situation today against Dallas, so he's definitely in play here. I like CD Lamb. this matchup is favorable for Dak, but it is away, so to keep that in mind. He struggled on the road this season, but he has some potential to get CD Lamb the ball a lot in this one, and it's against a weaker defense, so that definitely helps. I do like Tyreek Hill from Miami. He's going to have upside um, as long as Tua's in the game. Now his price point is pretty high though, so to keep that in mind, but he's definitely worth a look. Jacoby Mayers is also in play for Las Vegas. He has some potential at this mid-range price point, and he's got some upside, especially if you wanted to utilize Minshaw at quarterback. He would definitely be somebody I would sneak into the wide receiver core on this particular slate. A couple other guys, though, you could look at Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, Lad McConkey, A.J. Brown, Jackson Najiba, and Tyler Lockett all have some utility here. For their top ownerships, Drake London, Chris Olave, Cedric Tillman, Tyreek Hill, Jacoby Myers, Malik Neighbors, and Lad McConkey. Looking at our tight ends, we just have a couple guys to look at here. Brock Bowers for Vegas. He's been pretty good so far this season. He's got a very fantastic matchup today, so I look for him to have a lot of upside. But I also like Mike Gesicki, who looks like he'll be the starting tight end here for Cincinnati. Now, he doesn't have the highest of ceilings, but he's dirt cheap. He can help you pay up other positions, and Las Vegas has struggled against some tight ends, so he definitely draws some really good upside here. The ownership will go to Mike Gesicki, Trey McBride, and David Njoku. Njoku is definitely a guy that I would definitely consider, but he's a little bit pricey at this position. Looking at our defenses, the Saints have the top overall play here against the Carolina Panthers, who are one of the worst teams. The Chargers also look interesting against Cleveland, though I don't love them. But without Cleveland having their quarterback, that definitely gives them some upside. Baltimore Ravens also have some utility against Denver, and then the Tennessee Titans. They actually do have a little bit upside against New England, but they could end up losing that game, so keep that in mind. As for the ownership for the defenses, Cardinals, Giants, Chargers, Titans. But I am looking at the Saints as probably my favorite play there, even though they're the most expensive defense on here. Let's look at our running back or NBA real quick. This is a very small slate, so we don't have too much to look at here. But we do have some injuries on this slate. Looking at the Orlando Magic, Banchero is out and Carter Jr. is questionable. For the Pelicans, McCollum, Murray, Jones, and Murphy are out, and Hawkins is questionable. For Atlanta, Daniels is questionable. Hunter and Bogdanovich are out, and for Dallas, Kleber and Exum is out. The Atlanta New Orleans game is likely to have a lot more points than the Orlando Dallas game, so keep that in mind. So I do think that it's going to be favorable to look at players from that game. However, there's some good players from the other two teams that definitely look decent as well. Looking at Atlanta as a team, we are going to focus on Trae Young, Jalen Johnson, and uh, David Roddy today. If Daniels plays, then you don't want to use Wallace or Roddy, who both have some utility today if he's out. But if Daniels plays, then they're going to be a fades. And Daniels is also overpriced in that. But Trae Young is definitely a guy that can score over 50 fantasy points today, and his price isn't super crazy like it can get. So do keep that in mind. Jalen Johnson also looks interesting, though he is pricey, but he's a little bit boom or bust today. But he's got enough upside that he's definitely worth a look in an up tempo matchup. As for the Pelicans, Alvarado is a core play for me. He's been playing very well, and he's going to be starting again likely. So he's going to continue to start. He's going to continue to have a lot of minutes. Brandon Ingram is also somebody you can look at a lot today. He's priced pretty fair. He's been average. He's been average versus Atlanta in the past, but on a two-game slate, he's definitely worth a look. And Zion Williamson definitely draws a lot of utility on the slate because he has that big-time upside, though he has had some struggles in the last few games, so keep that in mind. But with all the injuries here, his usage should be pretty high. I would avoid Hawkins if he does play because he's a little bit pricey, and the other guys, they're kind of not worth too much a look outside of being kind of Hail Mary plays, and that'd be Theus and Boston and Green and Missy. So looking at Orlando, we look at this game with Banchero being out. Suggs, Franz Wagner, and Carter Jr. all get nice boosts today. Now, Carter Jr. is questionable. He did miss the last game, and then Martise Wagner did end up starting. Wagner would be interesting, though his price has come up a lot, which definitely hurts him. But he definitely is okay if Bitazed also missed the game, then Wagner would likely start again, and that would at least give him some upside. Suggs and Franz Wagner, though, both have a lot of potential in the slate. with their price points and their upside. And Suggs is one of my core plays as well, though he also only fits at point guard, so do keep that in mind. Alvarado and Suggs are the best two plays on the slate in general. As for the other players on Orlando, Black, Caldwell Pope, both avoidable guys, don't really have a ton of upside. And then Isaac and Wagner, Mortice Wagner, De Silva, and Jet Howard. Um, Isaac and Mortice Wagner both a little bit have come up in price a lot due to the fact that they got more minutes the last couple games, and that definitely hurts their potential. And then De Silva and Jet Howard are both kind of Hail Mary plays. Looking at Dallas, we do like Kyrie Irving a lot today, as we like PJ Washington and Lively. Now, Irving has that shooting guard potential today, which is definitely nice for the slate, considering point guard is pretty heavy, chalk heavy today. But if you want to utilize him at shooting guard, he's definitely capable. Luka is pretty pricey today, and he's really not had, but he's had 3 bad games under 50 fantasy points. Not bad comparatively, but bad for his price. So he's not a must play by any stretch. And typically, it seems like so far this season, at least Kyrie, when he's gone off, Luka has not done as much, and so that definitely bodes well for Kyrie today at his underpriced point. Looking at PJ Washington, though, he definitely has some potential today. He's been really good in the last 3 games as well. He's a little bit underpriced for his potential, but he definitely carries a little bit more risk because Orlando is good against bigger guys. And then Lively, he's not starting for Gafford at the center, but he's in a timeshare with Gafford, though he's been performing a lot better, so he's definitely in a safer position. And his price is still decent, so he's definitely worth a look. With that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any